Hello, welcome everyone to the playback for the Self-Led Artist webinar that I hosted last week. For those of you that wanted to listen back to some of my thoughts and framework ideas as part of this initial iteration of the Self-Led Artist, this is the place to do it. I had so much great feedback off the call, and was so grateful for those of you that were there in real time. So this is an opportunity for those of you that want to reflect back on some of the questions in terms of the artistic process. To give you a really quick overview now, the big question behind all of the work that I'll continue to do as part of the Self-Led Artist is, how can artists live healthy, sustainable lives, creative lives that last and that can hold them? And it's such a huge question because there's so many factors that come into it, internal and external. And this call will go through 5 internal pillars that we can start with as an artist to develop more of a structure, a framework, and guidance, internal guidance for ourselves to eventually reflect out an external authority. And my aim is for as many of you as possible to become self-led artists, empowered in your vision and your direction, and for you to live sustainable creative lives. That's the aim. So today's session is designed as an orientation, so it's just essentially an opportunity to look at the current structure behind your creative life as an artist right now as it is, so you can begin to understand what's actually shaping your creative path and what might be holding you back right now. I find a lot of the artists that I speak to, they feel sometimes maybe I'm not disciplined enough, maybe I'm not productive enough, and they feel that sometimes their ups and downs as a creative is a personality flaw, but it's normally internal structure that's missing. And that's what the self-led artist runs through essentially. And to live a stable and meaningful life as an artist and creative person, which so many of us want, where you're not constantly in survival mode, which I'm sure a lot of us have experienced, where you're not lost about what comes next, you need internal structure. So it's not something that artists are taught. We literally come out of the womb like expected to know how to navigate this world as a creative person within systems that are not built for us. We were taught how to make the work, how to be creative. There's tools out there for productivity, strategy, how to get heard fast. But the key components that are missing is a framework that supports artists for a lifetime in a way that respects their artistry, their body, their well-being, their vision. So essentially what I'm trying to build is I'm calling it the architecture of a creative life. And I will be doing a lot of research over the next few years with the artists I'm blessed to work with in a production capacity, in a mentoring capacity, and with through my own art to get to the bottom of this question, by building something that doesn't yet exist. So that's my long-term goal and aim, and I'm confident that I can get there, and it's going to be born through my lens, of course, but the answers will be found in everyone that I connect to, with different webinars and seminars and eventually in-person conversations. And that consistent iterative feedback is what is going to build the self-led artist to be what it needs to be for culture and community right now. So I'm going to offer you today a clear overview of what exists within the internal structure right now, the 5 pillars that the self-led artist's methodology stands on right now. So it can help you build an authentic creative life that lasts. This life of the artist, as I've mentioned, doesn't tend to have a clear path. So this is the kind of pain point that I'm trying to support. So at the core of the self-led artist, I believe that creative freedom is not the absence of structure. It is the presence of the right structure beneath the work and the creative life. So that's the theme that we can, we'll continue to come back to that theme through the talk. And just for you guys listening for today, if you have a pen and pad, there's going to be some reflective questions that you guys can answer as we go through to hopefully help locate yourself and orient yourself as we go through. And just DM me at any point at the self-led artist _ on Instagram. So by the end of today, we will understand the internal structure behind a creative life that lasts a little bit more. We'll meet something called the CRADS Framework, which is a framework I'm creating at the moment that currently has 5 pillars. We're going to recognize where instability as an artist comes from. We're going to identify your creative bottleneck, and you'll hopefully leave with at least one practical question with a shift to continue on your creative journey. So today we'll offer you a clear map of what shapes a creative life that can actually be lived inside, one that's inhabitable and one that can hold you. It's not about solving everything in one session. So a common pattern that I notice in creative life, and this is just before we look at the framework itself, and I wonder if this pattern resonates with you as creative people. There are periods of your life as an artist where your work will flow quite easily. You'll feel inspired, you'll feel motivated, you'll feel productive. And then there are other periods where things feel a lot harder. Sometimes these can cycle through in like weeks, days, you know. You might feel stuck and inconsistent and confused, overwhelmed, unsure about what direction to take next. And many artists interpret these shifts as personal problems. So you, as I said, you might think, maybe it's me, maybe I've just lost inspiration, maybe this isn't the path for me, maybe I'm just not built for this long term. But the issue isn't your talent or your ability or your motivation. It's just that your internal structure has not been integrated yet because we were never taught it. So that's where the CRADS framework comes in. So if this creative instability is often a structural issue, the next question becomes, what internal structures shape a successful and sustainable creative life? Over time, so far with the artists that I have worked with, and just reflecting on my own experience since I've been in the industry, which is over 15 years now, I noticed that the structural issue falls into 5 internal areas, and we're going to go through them briefly so you can understand them a little bit more. So this is what it looks like visually. So C stands for creative identity. The question underneath this, as I develop it, is who are you without being witnessed? Who are you? What is your identity when it's not being mirrored back? That's as an artist and as a human being. It's a big, big question, but one that is the bedrock and foundation for what comes next. R is regulation, working from steadiness and not consistent urgency or emotional intensity. A is artistry. This is actually about your craft itself. So what are you actually mastering right now? There is this culture that we exist in right now that encourages novelty and this quick, let's move from idea to idea, let's just get something out, and it's not connected internally to your truest expression. I'm not saying that consistent output and this fresh movement of creativity is a negative thing, but I have noticed when it comes from disconnection, it's not going to last. So artistry asks the opposite question. What are you willing to stay with long term, long enough for it to actually deepen? How can you have patience long term to deepen something within your artistry? Because mastery appears through repetition and commitment, not novelty. D stands for direction, which is creative life moving in seasons. So where is your creative life actually going? Creative life moves through seasons. As we know, you're going to have periods of exploration. You're going to have moments where you're going to be in production mode, in refinement mode, exploration, maybe rest. Maybe there's a season of 2-3 months where you're resting. When you think about life in seasons as an artist, what naturally happens is there is a sense of coming back to your true creative identity, a sense of slowing down, and there isn't as much of a sense of urgency. all of these are tied together as well, because actually you can't really get to D without moving through C, R, and A first. You can't understand truly that your life moves in seasons if you're not regulated. Because if you're in fight or flight and your nervous system is reactive, you're going to just work from urgency. And that is going to be heightened if your C, creative identity, is not robust. So you can see how this moves through. S is for sustainability. So this asks one final question. Can the creative life you're building actually hold you? Many artists live in this society, within the systems that we've been thrown into, on burnout, exhausted. And I've experienced it. This framework is built purely from experience because I have been in quite extreme situations due to pushing myself kind of further than my body or mind could handle. So sustainability, it means building a creative life that supports you as an artist as well as your art. And the questions we'll be exploring is how do we do that? And part of my mentoring and future seminars and future sessions will start offering you tools in each of these internal areas to build a more sustainable, healthy, long-term artistic life that resonates with you and that feels aligned and feels authentic, you know. So before we go any deeper with the questions, I want to offer you a really simple tool that you can use right now. So think of each CRADS area and quickly rate it from 1 to 10 in your creative life today. So think about, out of 10, how strong would you say your creative identity is? Because your identity, it needs to precede your output. So the kind of question that you can ask here is, do you know who you are as an artist when no one is watching? And out of 10, where would you put yourself there? The next one is regulation, as we know, so that's working from steadiness. And a question that can help you rate yourself out of 10 for that one could be, do you tend to create during just emotional intensity or emotional highs or moments of pressure, or do you tend to create every day or every week quite steadily? Where is it coming from? And so on and so forth through to A, D, and S. Artistry, are you working on something in particular in your craft that's deepening your craft? Direction, do you understand what season you're in? Where you're at right now in your artistic life? Can you sit in your body and connect to that? And S, does your current life allow this long game, this long arc of a beautiful creative life hold you right now? And if not, why? And there's of course environmental, external, capitalist most of the time reasons for why the sustainability can be hard when you're having to accept the reality of working, maybe a job that you don't want to be in. But in terms of bigger picture, you can still amend your life in ways that will feel sustainable. So that's the bottleneck. So hopefully you should have a rough idea now out of 10 where all of those areas fall. We're going to go into the question bit now. So at every point when I ask the questions, just pause the video, have as long as you want answering these questions, and then you can come back into the next bit. So we're going to do reflective questions on each area of the CRADS framework. C is our starting point. So this is creative identity. Who are you as an artist when no one is watching? Let's look at these questions. And just quickly before you jump into the questions, many artists, this is not a personality flaw, this is common. You can unintentionally build your identity around reaction, around like feedback and attention, visibility, approval. But when this identity depends on being witnessed, the creative life can feel quite fragile. Identity must come before output. That's a key line for you to remember, yeah? So the questions to ask yourself, do I feel Do I still feel like an artist when my work isn't being seen? There's no right or wrong. How much of my motivation depends on external response? Do I know what I'm trying to say through my work? And when I create, am I expressing something internal or responding to expectations? So that's the first round of questions. Please pause and run through as long as you want, and I'm going to move over to the next one. So the next one is regulation. From what state does your creativity emerge? So regulation looks at the nervous system and the emotional conditions that we create from. Some artists are quite used to creating in states of urgency or emotional intensity or pressure, but those states can be difficult to sustain. There's also the argument of play state can't be fully reached if you're in fight or flight due to other areas of your life. So this is creativity hinges on your regulation. Creativity can hinge on your physical, emotional, mental health. How well are you looking after your body? The true life of an artist needs a body that's looked after, and that comes down to regulation at the core level. So thinking about areas that will allow more regulation into your life. How can you essentially offer yourself the most self-care that you can within the conditions that you're in to allow creativity to be steady, to be repetitive, to be daily or weekly, and that will lead you on to the next pillar of artistry. So the questions are, do I tend to create during emotional highs or moments of pressure? When I feel calm or stable, does my creativity continue or disappear? How often does urgency drive my creative output? And do I know what conditions actually help me work well? That is R. I'll move on to the next one. Feel free to pause it here. The next one is artistry. What are you truly mastering? Artistry is about craft. So it asks quite powerful questions, i.e., what are you willing to stay with long enough for it to deepen? There is this constant novelty within the world of being a creative. It can be easy to move quickly from idea to idea, but this depth develops through repetition. If you cannot repeat it, you haven't mastered it yet. So this style and voice often emerges not from searching widely, but from staying with something long enough for it to evolve. That's where your true voice comes. Patience and longevity. So questions to ask yourself: what craft or skill am I actually committed to developing? Do I stay with ideas long enough for them to deepen? How comfortable am I repeating something until it improves? Am I building mastery or constantly starting over? Again, there's no right or wrong, no shame, just an orientation to really make you think about the direction of your life as an artist and how you can build something sustainable over time. Feel free to pause it here. Okay, direction. So direction, as we said, it's about orientation over time. Your creative life will move in seasons naturally as an artist. So you're going to have periods of exploration, refinement, and rest. But many artists feel pressure to always be producing in the same way. And creative life moves in seasons, not straight lines. There are different seasons for each part of your creative life, and you can potentially get lost without the structure necessary to pivot and move within the correct season that you're actually in. And it requires locating where you're at, connecting to yourself, and orientating yourself, right? So, question to ask yourself: do I know what season my creative life is currently in? Am I trying to do everything at once? Do I have a sense of longer term direction for my work? And am I allowing time for exploration or forcing constant output? these questions are big and common in terms of the answers that come up. So really good point to make some notes in these areas. I'm going to move on to the last one, and feel free to pause it here for more reflection time. Sustainability is the final internal pillar. Can the creative life you're building actually hold you? So sustainability asks whether the structures around your work are actually durable. Many artists build systems that eventually exhaust them. So sustainability invites a different question. Can this creative life support the artist as well as the work? Because if your creative life costs yourself, it can't last. So it's about slowing down creativity and your life's speed to have a think about, is this sustainable over time? Before I developed this framework a few years ago, I had a partner who used to say to me a lot as I was working and building and working towards the many different things I was working towards. They used to say to me, that's not sustainable. What you're doing is not sustainable. And I didn't really understand them. And it's only now, as I'm developing this framework and I've had a lot of reflection time over the last year plus, that I really understand what that means, and how sustainability can reflect in all other areas of your life in terms of the progress. Slow and steady wins the race in the case of a long, healthy artist's life you can be proud of. So questions to ask yourself. Does my current creative rhythm feel sustainable over years? Am I building habits that support my long-term well-being right now? Do I have boundaries that protect my creative time and energy? And is the structure around my work helping me or draining me? And feel free to just pause and answer those questions in your own time. So we're going to locate the bottleneck as we've done prior. So hopefully with those reflective questions and given yourself enough time to reflect on them, you'll be able to work out right now what areas need to be looked at. And you can bring this framework together with this quote: external authority is built from internal coherence. Internal coherence is the foundation of a sustainable creative life. So when you bring these internal pillars together and they start working together and you're working towards moving in a direction where all five are interacting with each other and supporting one another, you'll start to feel an internal transformation happen. You'll start to feel that you're more self-authored, you're clearer in your direction, you have more self-trust, you believe in what you're doing with even more depth, you see your path. And that's a really, really beautiful place to be. They all start interacting with each other. And I've written here, when identity is stable, visibility stops destabilizing you. When your regulation becomes steady, creativity becomes repeatable. When your artistry deepens, confidence stops depending on reaction. When direction is clear, effort stops scattering. And when sustainability holds, a creative life becomes inhabitable rather than exhausting. So this creative life, it doesn't have to feel chaotic forever. We just need to build the internal architecture underneath it, which is what I'm starting to do and have many, many years ahead of me to answer these big questions and refine it. So this is where the idea of the self-led artist comes in. It's someone who actually builds the structure that allows your creativity to continue. And I can be here as a guide and facilitator of that transformation and process. The world is not built for artists, and there are not really many systems in place that support artists. We've always known this. So this platform is about building the structure and the system that can actually hold people like us over time. So a small practice for this week before we close up. So I want to leave you with a small practice. Ask yourself this question as you go away from the webinar. What is one small change I could make this week that stabilizes this bottleneck area, whichever one you chose out of the CRADS 5 internal structures. What's one tiny change I can make in one of these areas? These small shifts that you make over time will start to positively impact your life. So for any of you that are watching this video or continue to resonate with the work that I'm developing here at the Self-Led Artist, I will be offering very small mentorship containers from April 2026 onwards. Each week it will be 5-week mentoring, either small groups or one-on-one, depending on your request and my availability. It will run over 5 weeks, and each week will be a different pillar, and we'll really go into depth around the internal structure of each letter. I'll offer you practical support, reflection, an opportunity for you to really locate yourself through talking to me and having a kind of your blind spots reflected back to you, and practical tools, tasks, almost you could call them like worksheets or homework to go away with. And once you really understand this framework, you can then take that and start implementing it every day into your creative life, and that's where real change starts to happen. So you'll hopefully leave after the mentorship sessions with me with a clearer identity as an artist, practical structures that will support your work, stronger direction, and a more sustainable relationship with your creativity. That's the aim. And yeah, if you're interested in that, you can comment, you can send me a DM on at the self-led artist _, and I can help you more with that. And just as a final line, obviously big thank you for all of you that have either been onto the webinar that I have hosted so far and will continue to do. But just as a final kind of leaving thought, creative freedom, which we all want as artists, we all want creative freedom. We just want to be able to do what we want and make music and paint and whatever your artistic medium is. Creative freedom isn't about avoiding structure or rebelling against the structures. It's about building the right one that can support your creative life. It doesn't have to be boring or difficult to manage. Like I'm offering you that foundation with what I'm building as part of the Self-Led Artist. So yeah, big thank you, and I'm looking forward to continuing to explore this topic and building the framework step by step.